We've got a great interview for you guys now. Someone we've been talking about on the show before. Her name is Stephanie George. And this is really interesting because she is one of the victims of the war on drugs. She got a life sentence for nonviolent drug offenses. 3 strikes in Florida. We're going to tell you how those 3 strikes came about. Stephanie, I want to welcome you to the Young Turks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being on with us. Well, obviously, you're out of prison now because President Obama commuted your sentence, which I was honestly a little shocked by. That happened on December 19th, 2013, and you got out 2 months ago around April 17th, 2014, and you're now back home in Pensacola, Florida, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Stephanie, I want to get your whole story, but before we do, I was curious if you knew while you were in prison that banks like HSBC admitted to about $9 billion worth of money laundering for the biggest Mexican drug cartels and got no prison sentence whatsoever for any of their executives or anybody who worked on that program. Did you know that when you were in prison at all? And if you did, how did it make you feel?
Well, actually, I found out about it prior to me being released, but no one ever, it was, sometimes we saw the newspapers or we were able to get mail from home. But I was very surprised about it. And I mean, not only me, but a lot of people were very upset about the situation. Yeah.
It almost seems like there's very little justice in the world. Okay, so let's talk about your situation, and then we'll actually get to the justice part too, where you got out and how that happened. So first of all, your first 2 offenses were for about $160 worth of drugs, and they started back in 1993. So be honest with us. Tell us how you got involved in that in the first place.
Well, being young and I was raising 3 kids of my own, it was pretty hard trying to, and just hanging around the wrong people at the wrong time really got me caught up, thinking I can make just a little money to get by, pay my bills, and take care of the kids.
Mm-hmm. And so on the 3rd offense, your ex-boyfriend, this guy named Michael, confessed that it was his drugs that were found in your apartment, but he claimed that he was paying you to store those drugs. What was his motivation for turning you in, whether it was true or not true?
Actually, he made that statement after everything went down, and I was pretty much upset because I wasn't even aware that the drugs were in there. But being as though I wouldn't, continuously to talk to him or speak with him, that was his way of bringing me into the case.
Now, why would he want to bring you into the case?
Upset. I mean, that was my daughter's father.
Mm-hmm.
So he was pretty much mad because I didn't want to be bothered with him no more after that situation happened. So the only way he felt that he could have gotten back at me is to say that, which would have gave me another charge and have me put away.
So that's really interesting. Did you know at the time about mandatory minimums in Florida, and that if you had 3 strikes, you were going to get a life sentence?
No, I didn't know. I really didn't even believe that it was going to go down that way. I mean, being as though I never did any time, period. But to catch a charge like that and for people to be able to say whatever just to get you a sentence was crazy to me.
So, of course, there's the incentive that Michael and others had, too, to lower their sentences by becoming an informant against you, right? And so you didn't have anybody to inform on because you weren't really dealing the drugs. So that puts you in an ironically bad situation, right?
Correct.
And you got probation for the first offense, right? What happened on the second?
Yes, my very first offense.
Right. So you didn't serve any jail time for that. What happened after the second offense? What did you get for that?
Well, the second offense was the charge that I was just in prison for, which what they did was gave me several counts on the same charge. So being as though they gave me several counts on that charge, they wanted to be able to give me 3 strikes. So the first charge I had probation, and I had 2 counts on the very same charge, which they split those 2 counts up and were able to sentence me under the 3 strikes law.
Oh my God.
Which allowed them to give me a life sentence because basically they saying I had dealt in the same crime 3 times, which it was only 2 times, my first one, and the second time was 2 counts, but they split them in order to give me to, sentence me out to life.
So when you actually got the life sentence, how shocked were you?
I was very shocked because even people that I knew that had been in the system and whatever, they were like, no, they can't give you no life for that. And I'm like, I'm telling you what they're trying to do. But when they actually gave me the sentence, I was too done. I was just so numb, I couldn't even think straight.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally seems unbelievable. And if you're in the middle of it, it must have seemed even more surreal. And in your estimation now, having spent all this time in prison, over 15 years, how long was it exactly in prison?
17 years.
17 years. Having spent 17
Correct.
years in prison, do you have a sense that the people who got these 3 strikes, the mandatory minimums, had any idea that that even existed? Or to some degree were they all surprised, like, wow, wait, I didn't know that I could get this long for this?
Well, actually, it was a few people there that had been sentenced the same way that I had, so they were aware. But as I was doing my time and was able to look over things and, got to know people and see how they were sentenced, they were surprised at the time I got, even though they were pretty much like from other states, which was giving them lower sentencing.
Mm-hmm. So, your kids are growing up, obviously, as you're in prison. How tough was that?
It was awful. I kind of kept a good rapport with them. I was able to see them a lot, but it was tough because they went through, mentally and emotionally they were going through it because I wasn't there. Their father wasn't there, so my sister and my mom pretty much kept them. They looked over them. I was given my commutation December, but I had lost my youngest son October of 13. So that was a big blow to me because I hadn't really seen him that much 4 years prior to him getting murdered, and that was rough on me and my other 2.
Yeah. So he was 21 years old when he was murdered in October, like you said, right before you got the commutation. So it says in my notes here that if they find the guy who killed him, that you wouldn't even want that guy to go to prison. Is that right?
Yes, I did. I made a statement because, during the time that I've had and to have the sentence that I've had, I can't even say I wish that on anybody because him going to prison for the rest of his life for something that's not going to change the situation or bring my son back, I can't even wish that on anybody. I hope that whomever it is, that they haven't found out who killed my son, but I'm praying that whomever it is, that they learn from lesson, of taking someone's life, you know what I'm saying? Because you never know what situation someone's in doing something like that.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting that your experience about prison and to what degree it gives you compassion for others. So let's talk about that, because look, there's a lot of misconceptions, and honestly, I don't know what it's like inside prison. Most of us know it from, TV shows and movies and stuff, and you've got the whole range. You've got, you know, HBO that had the show Oz, where prison was so brutal that it was unbelievable. And then you've got movies like The Wolf of Wall Street, where the guy goes to a minimum security prison and plays tennis all day long. So it's really hard for us to know what actually happens inside prison. You were there for 17 years. What are the biggest misconceptions people have, and what actually happens there?
Well, I don't think that I can say that the time that I was there, I've learned a lot. I've did plenty of vocational training. I've gotten a business degree. I mean, there's times where it gets pretty hectic, but it's not. I can't say all bad time is bad time.
Mm-hmm.
You have to want to better yourself there versus being around the wrong people. I don't feel that it's any difference than on the streets. It's just that being locked away from your family and friends, you know, is hard on you. But I don't feel that it's rough like the TV is showing you it is.
Right.
It's just more of being put under scrutiny as far as when you sleep, when you work, where you go, you know, that type of stuff. But other than that, it's not a brutal place like they make it seem.
So that's really interesting.
But it's nowhere no one would want to be away from their family either.
Right. So the problem isn't so much the violence or anything along those lines. It's more that they've literally taken your freedom away. They dictate what you do with your life, and you can't see your family, and you're not outside with, you know, your loved ones. Is that the biggest problem by far?
Yes, very biggest problem.
Right. And so the whole time you were in prison, were you hopeful? Did you think there was any chance you can get out, given that they said, no, we're throwing away the key, you get a life sentence, that's it?
Well, I've always been a very spiritual person. I've always had faith, had hope. I never really accepted the life sentence, even though I was given it. But I've always kept faith. I've always had a strong family that has been there for me. They fight, they rallied, they, you know, wrote important people, just, you know, making sure that if there was any chance that I would be given.
So that's really interesting, too, because there's a lot of people, over thousands of people now serving life sentences for nonviolent drug offenses, which is amazing and ridiculous. I mean, your case happens to be particularly egregious because it was so minor, and it appears you didn't even do the last one, and that it was blamed on you. And then you have your family members that you were away from, and you did so well when you were inside prison getting your education, etc. But how did they even get your case in front of the president? Because the president has commuted very, very few sentences. He's commuted far less than even George Bush did. It's actually, honestly, except for your case, it's a terrible record for President Obama. How in the world did it get in front of him and he actually commuted the sentence? How did that process work?
One thing I did learn being there that I've always kept that faith, so I just felt like, you know, as long as I'm doing the right thing and programming and rehabilitating and, you know, getting myself set for society, because I've always said I'm going home regardless of the fact. So I kind of pretty much just kept my head up, and I wrote different organizations, FAM or whomever, you know, and they helped me out. They put my name out there, made sure, you know, that I kept my profile in face of the right people. Like I said, if your family's there for you, then, you know, you can pretty much get the help that you need. So I made sure that I was on the right track with that as well.
Stephanie, you mentioned FAM. People might not know that's Families Against Mandatory Minimums. They were very helpful in your case, apparently, as you just mentioned. And then you had a D.C. law firm, Crowell and Mooring, who, of course, took that on pro bono. And so,
correct.
So those guys were they your main champions in getting you out?
Oh, yes. Those are I call them my angels. They really, you know, was there for me. They really helped me. They stayed on top of a lot of things. I my biggest thing now is to make sure I do what I'm supposed to do to make them know that this is possible, to let someone off a life sentence and be able to live a good life and to get back into society.
Yep. So it's interesting because, we heard about your case, and as I mentioned in the beginning, I was so outraged that basically at most $160 worth of drugs, got you a life sentence, right? Whereas HSBC, a giant international bank, does $9 billion worth of drug money laundering, and they get nothing, right? I mean, they pay a huge fine, right? But nobody gets any prison sentence. And so they confessed to it too. They did it. I mean, $160 worth of versus $9 billion. And we actually, we did a petition for you, and we reached out to your lawyers, but they said, whoa, 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 take it easy. We think the president might commute the sentence. So we backed off of it. Right. And honestly, I was scared to death for you because I thought, there's no way the president's going to commute this sentence. But he did. He did. So look,
he did.
Yeah. So look, my other feelings about the president and his record on commutations and pardons aside, since they did do that, what are your feelings about Eric Holder, who's Attorney General, of course, and President Obama?
Well, I've been out. I was able to go to D.C. Probably like 3 weeks since I've been home. And I was able to go to D.C. and speak to the legislators in Congress, able to go and talk to the pardon attorneys, and, me, the other girls that were commutated by Bush, Clinton, and Obama, they invited us up to Washington to speak on behalf of the unjust sentencing. And it was very interesting because a lot of important people, Eric Holder, different senators were there, and we were able to, actually sit in their face and give them our story. And I think we accomplished a lot dealing with that. So I feel that President Obama, he knows what's going on, and he's not happy with it, but I don't feel that he can do but so much. But I do know that he was able to send me home, and I hope that him making the decisions that he made on the people that he released, that this will pretty much show them the unjust, as far as the HSBC, as far as them not getting time versus him allowing someone that has a minor role given so much time. So I'm hoping that they will be able to look at that and distinguish, where the injustice come in at.
Right. Well, look, I think they could do a lot more, but the flip side to that is, hey, at least he saved your life, right? So.
Yeah.
And
I have nothing bad to say.
Right. So that's to his eternal credit. I wish he'd do it more, but at least in your case, it's to his eternal credit. So now let's talk about. Well,
actually, they're doing. They got a 2014 commutation that's going on right now. So I feel that he's probably going to do much more because I've been, keeping up with FAM and them letting me know what's going on. They were able to go through the Bar Association for lawyers, and they're signing on in order to do pro bono cases with women that have done majority of their time and be able to help them get out as well.
Right. And finally, Stephanie, I want to get to your ideas on how to reform the system, whether it's the drugs war or prison. So let's start with the drug war. What do you think should happen? Should it be legalized? Should it be non-prison sentences? What should we do about this endless war on drugs?
I feel that they should at least start at the bottom with the people that you have. You have a lot of people that's on drugs. You need to start and figure out what can we do as far as helping them rehabilitate themselves. You have a lot of homeless people. I mean, you have different things that's really making people go to that extent in life. Not being able to get jobs, not being able to, supply their family with what they need. They have to start somewhere. because I feel like if they do that, then it will cut out all the excessive people selling. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So address it with
Because
the people who are actually...
right now, even though I have been commuted and I'm home, and I thank God for it, I'm still having problems as far as trying to get some means of income, because I was thinking when I first got here and was able to put my resume online, how many people had called me for interviews. I mean, it was tons of interviews on my Facebook page. But once I was made these interviews, it was like they spoke to me as if, you know, I had a marvelous resume. But once they found out where I had gotten all this training, it was like they didn't want to talk, or they didn't want to even pick me to see if I could actually do the jobs.
So that's interesting. So basically you're saying that if you get put in prison for drugs, not only does it not really help you in terms of getting better, but it also hurts your chances when you get out, and I guess that makes it a vicious cycle.
Yes. I mean, you have to be a very strong person if this is what you want to do, is be out here with your family and stay free, but they're not even providing or even considering what do you do after you come from prison. Even though I'm a healthy person, I mean, I came out with a good deal of health, what do I do as far as income?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm here with you. I'm here right now at a temp service now trying to fill out an application to see if I can find some work. But I've done so much. I did, as far as educational purposes, I've accomplished a lot, but what do you do with it? No one's helping you once you're here.
Right. So then how would you reform the prison system? I guess I assume, but you tell me if I'm wrong, that if you, based on what you were just saying, that if you were taking drugs, you wouldn't give them prison. Would you not give prison to people who sold drugs? Or how, in any other way, how would you reform the prison system?
I don't think as far as people who sold drugs, I think everyone has to pay for their mistakes, the crimes that they've committed. But to give someone such a harsh sentence for that, it's not really, what do you do? I mean, it's not helping the society itself. You keeping someone away that long, I mean, clean bill of health, how is it helping economy as far as work and putting, the money back into the economy itself? Because you got healthy people locked in prison, sitting down, doing basically nothing. Mm-hmm. So if you could, they could be punished for their crimes, but such a harsh sentence, I don't think that that's the answer.
And finally, Stephanie, what's your sense of why there are these injustices where you get a life sentence for what you did, which is, very, very minor, but the guys who do the biggest money laundering, the banks, et cetera, never get any jail sentence?
Well, I hope that someone would see the injustice of that, because, I'm sure it makes not only me, but a lot of people upset about the situation, because you tell me that these guys really admitted to their wrongdoing, and they gave them probation?
No, they got nothing criminal whatsoever. They paid a fine. Now, it was a $1.9 billion fine, so that sounds like a lot, but at the same time, they made billions of dollars.
Probably nothing.
Yeah, so they got no time whatsoever.
It's probably chump change to them.
Yeah. They made all that money laundering.
Right, but here you go, you have people locked up for money laundering. I've seen women locked up for money laundering. They're getting 20, 30 years for it, and come to find out, you know what I'm saying, it might have been $400 or $500 that they laundered.
Right. Isn't that amazing?
So that money, they're still able to have the money that they laundered and just pay them just a little bit.
Yeah, isn't that amazing that like you knew people in prison that were in prison for money laundering $400 or $500? These guys money launder nearly $10 billion for the worst drug cartels in the world, and they don't see a day of prison.
Which is how they're bringing it over.
Yep.
You're right. And they're probably the ones that's bringing it over.
Right. It is frustrating. Luckily, in your case, we got a little bit of justice, and we hope that that justice takes root and spreads. And thank you for getting the message out about it. We really appreciate it.
And my thing now, I'm just really hoping that I'm able to write a book and share my story with people and let them know how easy it is to get in trouble, but how hard it is to get out.
That's definitely the case, especially if you're not rich and powerful and don't work on Wall Street or Washington. Right, Stephanie.
Exactly.
Stephanie George, thank you so much for joining us on the Young Turks. We appreciate you joining us. We appreciate that you have the freedom to join us now. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you so much.